Ma'am, can you see me now?
Yeah.
Ma'am, I just have to start the slideshow, right? From the beginning, that's all. Shailaja, ma'am?
Yeah, madam. So she's muted. Just wait. So it's on.
Okay.
Live streaming has started. Yeah. Very good morning to all the viewers. It's my privilege to introduce Mrs. A.L. Bharati, postgraduate teacher in political science from Telangana Model School, Bolaram, Jinar. She has done masters in political science from University of Hyderabad and B.Ed from Andhra Mahila Sabha, Usman University, Hyderabad. She is presently pursuing her PhD from Usman University in the research area Judicial Activism and Indian Political Process. She is qualified in SET. We are continuing the political session, and the topic which is going to be covered today is different phases of national movement. So I would look forward for all the students to be acquainted with the Indian Constitution at the end of the session. So over to Mrs. Bharati for conducting today's session.
Thank you, Ram Prasad, sir. Good morning, children. I welcome you all to the series of webinars in political science, intermediate second year. Yesterday, we started the first unit, that is Indian Constitution, its historical context. Yesterday, we discussed introductory part and causes for the birth of Indian national movement. In today's session, we will be discussing about the different phases of national movement. Why the animation is not taking place? So today's lesson is different phases of national movement. It was spearheaded by Indian National Congress from 1885 to 1947. Historian Dr. Ramesh Chandra Majumdar divides the movement into three phases. It is for the sake of our convenience. He divides the entire history of Indian National Congress into three phases. The first one is the moderate phase. The second one is the extremist phase. And the third one is the Gandhian phase. This division is done on the basis of the methods, objectives, goals, and other strategies followed by the leaders. You can see the picture of the Indian National Congress leaders here. The first one is the moderate phase. It lasted from the inception of the INC in the year 1885 to 1905. It is called an era of reforms and liberalism. It is called the era of reforms and liberalism because mainly the leaders of this period, Dadabhai Nauroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Surendranath Banerjee, and Umesh Chandra Banerjee, were all acquainted with Western ideas, and they belong to the middle class section in our society, and they believe that the British will introduce reforms, and they also believe that they will follow, the British rulers will follow liberal policies in India. They considered British rulers as votaries of democracy and liberalism. Children, as you all know, England is the birthplace of democracy, and democracy is the form of government in England. We too adopted democracy as a form of government. As democracy originated in England and followed in England, all these leaders believed that the same will be applicable in India also. That means the British rulers will follow all democratic values in our country also. The movement was confined to English educated middle classes. At this time, around this time, this phase of the national movement, mostly the movement was dominated by only these people. I mean, the elite section of the society, educated section of the society, and it did not penetrate into each and every corner of the country, and it was not so broad based around this time. Now, let us see what are the demands of the leaders around this time. Their political demands were reforms in the Legislative Council to provide more representation to Indians. Though there were legislative councils existing around that time, very few limited Indians were able to get a chance to enter the legislative council. So they wanted, these moderate leaders wanted reforms so that more and more Indians will have a chance to be a part of the legislative council. Entry of Indians in administrative services. If you remember, in yesterday's class, we discussed about the British introducing a concrete administrative system and also Indian civil services, the prestigious Indian civil services. So, though it was established for the sake of attracting the best talented people to run the administration, many Indians did not find place in it. So, these moderate leaders were also demanding the entry of Indians in administrative services. Reduction of military expenditures. As you all know, every nation competes with its neighbors to increase its military expenditure and procure arms and ammunition. And the British rulers were not an exception, and they were spending a lot of money on military. So these people, these leaders wanted that to be reduced, and the money that was being spent on military should be diverted to the welfare activities. Repeal of Arms Act. In yesterday's class, we discussed about certain draconian laws introduced by the British to suppress the Indians. One of those acts was Arms Act. That means if anyone is carrying arms, they can be arrested. Separation of judiciary from executive. What do you understand by this separation of judiciary from executive? If you remember, you studied about the organs of the government in your first year syllabus. So what are the organs of the government? Legislature, executive, and judiciary. So who proposed this theory? This theory is called the separation of powers. Who proposed this theory? Can you recall the name of the political philosopher? Yes, it was Montesquieu, a French philosopher. He developed or he discussed about the separation of powers in his book, The Spirit of Laws. So on those lines, for better administration and transparent administration and also an accountable administration, these moderate leaders were demanding separation of judiciary from executive. That means judiciary and executive organs of the government will be completely separate. So what are the economic demands of the moderate phase? Their economic demands were very prominent because around this time, the national movement was very much confined to the educated middle class, as I discussed in the previous slide. So their main contribution, the main contribution of the moderate leaders lies in their economic demands. Reduction in land revenue. The land revenue that was collected by the British was very high. So it was resulting in the poverty of the farmers. Farmers were facing many problems because of high land revenue. So they wanted the British to reduce the land revenue. rapid development of modern industries. Yesterday, we discussed about how industrial revolution started in England and how they were procuring raw materials from our country and dumping the finished goods. So intentionally, the British did not initiate industrialization in India, and Indian entrepreneurs were always disgraced by the British because the reason is obvious here. They wanted us to be a dependent country. They did not want any industrial progress in our country. That is the reason why they did not develop any industries, and moderate leaders focused on this aspect. Stopping of economic drain of India. Yesterday we discussed about the economic drain and Dadabhai Naoroji's economic drain theory and his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. So you are now very well acquainted with this concept. Economic drain means all the wealth that was generated in India was taken to England. Development of banking to support the farmers and artisans. What are their other demands? Development of irrigation, education, medical, and health facilities. In yesterday's class, we discussed that many people died of famines that resulted in starvation. It was because sufficient food grains were not produced in the country. For that, to address famines, to reduce famines, we have to develop the irrigational facilities so that we can bring vast areas of lands under cultivation, and education, which is considered to be a cure for many problems in the society. Medical and health facilities. There were no medical and health facilities to address the epidemics during those times. This point also we discussed yesterday. So these were their other demands. What are their methods? Peaceful and constitutional. Though these moderate leaders were aware of the exploitative nature of the British rule, they did not want to take recourse to violent methods. So always their methods were peaceful and constitutional. That means legal. They never wanted to cross the boundaries of law. So mainly they depended on prayers, petition, and protest to vent their grievances. So what is the result of the fighting of the moderate phase leaders was the enactment of the Indian Councils Act 1892 that gave more representation to Indians, and the Government of India Act 1909, which is also known as Minto-Marley reforms. So mainly these leaders were asking for reforms and concessions from the British rule. That is the reason why, to satisfy them, the British introduced this Indian Councils Act and the Government of India Act 1909. Moderates were criticized for their subordination and loyalty to British because though they were aware of the problems that were caused by the British rule, they never opposed vehemently. Rather, they always believed in the abilities of the British to extend democratic values in India. Then after the moderate phase started the extremist phase. It lasted from 1905 to 1920. You can see here the picture of Lal Bal Pal. This is Lala Lajpat Rai from Punjab. This is Bal Gangadhar Tilak from Maharashtra, and this is Bipin Chandra Pal. They are famously known as Lal Bal Pal. So Aurobindo Ghosh was also one of the extremist leaders. Condemned the partition of Bengal state in 1905. If you remember, there are many leaders. You might have studied about the freedom fighters from Bengal in your lower classes. Bengal was the place where this freedom struggle was going on. Very people were actively participating in the freedom struggle. So, as usual, the British always wanted to follow the divide and rule policy. So they wanted to divide the Bengalis. Bengal province was divided into two provinces, two parts. So it was done by Lord Gurjin. So people understood the strategy behind the partition of Bengal and they protested against this. So condemned the partition of Bengal state in 1905, opposed the moderates' views on British rulers. As I told you, moderates always supported the Britishers and believed that they will extend all the political values that they have been following in England. But these extremist leaders were fed up with the loyalty of the moderate leaders towards the British. Unlike the moderate leaders who were mainly focusing on concessions and reforms, these people, these leaders wanted complete independence. What are the methods of extremist leaders? Boycott of British goods, boycott of honorary titles. If you say the British rulers were dumping all their finished goods in our country and that discouraged our rural artisans and cottage industries. And the machine-made goods were always cheaper. So people were buying those goods as they were available at very cheaper prices. And it was resulting in the poverty of artisans. So we should boycott the British goods so that our cottage industries can be again revived. Boycott of honorary titles. The British had the practice of giving titles to some of the Indian leaders, and these extremist leaders believed that the titles given by the foreign rulers should be given up. Passive resistance. What do you mean by resistance and what do you mean by passive resistance? Resistance means opposing. Then what is passive resistance? Opposing the rulers peacefully without taking recourse to violence. Organizing festivals to unite people. If you remember, Tilak introduced, you must have studied about it in your history part, organizing festivals to unite people. Especially Tilak is very famous for this particular festival, organizing festivals. Tilak is from Maharashtra and he started organizing the Ganesh festival, the Ganesh Navratri that we celebrate today, started by Tilak in Maharashtra. That is the reason why even in today's Maharashtra, it is celebrated in a very, with a lot of enthusiasm. So why, what is the meaning behind this? What is the need to organize festivals on a massive scale? The reason is they understood that though people are aware of the evils of foreign rule, they were not in a position to unite or put up a united struggle against the British because the Indian society is divided on the basis of caste. There is no unity among Indians. So many religions, so many languages, and among Hindus, there is a caste system, very rigid system. So people are not united for the sake of the country, for the sake of freedom. So there is a need to unite people, send the message that we all are Indians and we should forget about caste, religion, language, region, etc. This is the meaning behind organizing festivals on a massive scale. Mainly it was done by Tilak. And still we are continuing that legacy. And many people look forward to celebrate the Ganesh Navratri. Political action with Bandh and Hartal. So they undertook, they organized Bandhs and Hartals. Promoting education, as I told you, education will give awareness to the people, and once the people are enlightened, it becomes easy to unite them. Extremist phase. Continued. Movements. What are the movements organized by the extremist leaders? Vande Mataram or Swadeshi movement? Vande Mataram movement or Swadeshi, both are same. They are called Bengal Unification Movement also. Whether it is Bengal Unification Movement, Vande Mataram movement or Swadeshi movement, these three are similar. As I told you, in the year 1905, Lord Curzon wanted to divide Bengal into two provinces, and people protested this, and there was a massive struggle against this division of Bengal. So this is also known as Swadeshi movement. Boycott of foreign goods, as I told you earlier. Boycott public services and government educational institutions. All the public services, that means run by the government, and also the educational institutions. Strikes, bunds, and hartals. Picketing in front of shops selling foreign goods. Burning of foreign goods as a symbol of protest and hatred towards foreign goods. Holding festivals and melas. Extremist phase. During this phase, there was another important movement, that is Home Rule movement, organized by two important leaders. One is Annie Besant and the other is Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Home rule means self-rule. Around this time, the British was very busy with the First World War, and Annie Besant wanted to take an advantage of this situation. She told the British now is very busy with the World War. Now let us intensify our struggle for self-rule. So they established home rule leagues in different parts of the country, and they adopt peaceful means to attain self-rule. Here also there is no room for violence during this phase. Establishment of libraries. Because libraries will not only give knowledge to the people, and they will also act as a place of gathering for people where they can exchange their views, and so that the spirit of nationalism can be spread. So apart from giving knowledge to the people, these libraries will also act as a place of gathering. Social reconstruction programs. And this home rule movement resulted in Lord Montague promised self-rule in local self-governing bodies. So during this home rule movement, both Tilak and Annie Besant were arrested. And this, what is the final outcome of home rule movement? Lord Montague promised self-rule in local self-governing bodies. Remember, here self-rule is only confined to the self-governing bodies. I mean the local bodies only. She's Annie Besant. Growth of militant nationalism. Nationalism emerged outside the Congress to challenge British rule. So there was a kind of cultural revival, and Indians around this time started taking pride in their own culture, and they were very unhappy with the moderate phase, and also the extremist phase leaders did not attain much. After facing their struggle, also they did not attain much. So many youth like Bhagat Singh, Khudiram Bose, they took recourse to revolutionary methods. These organizations were established: Anushilan Samiti, Gadar Party, and Hindustan Republican Army. They were established during this phase of nationalism. So some of the important leaders of this phase include Shyamji Krishna Varma, Veer Savarkar, Lala Dayal, Udham Singh, Khudiram Bose, Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Sukhdev, Ram Prasad Bismil, etc. it is very interesting to see that during this militant nationalism, I mean, during this phase of national movement, many women also took an active part. For example, Madam Kama, Suniti Ghosh, Beena Das, Kalpana Dutt, Preetilata Wadekar, etc. All these women also took an important part in the movement. That shows that there was a growing consciousness among women too. What are the methods of militant nationalists? They attack the weapon units. I mean, where the weapons are stored by the government, those places were attacked by the leaders. And they used to acquire weapons because they were involved in militant activities. Further, they needed weapons. So how they procured the weapons? They attacked the weapon units of the government and took away the weapons. Assaulted or killed some British administrators. They thought that physically eliminating the arrogant British administrators was the answer to the problem, because some judges were very rude towards the Indians and they were very arrogant and insensitive. So these leaders got very angry with them, and they made several attempts to kill some of the British administrators, and some got killed also. Displayed courage, sacrifice, and patriotism. Children, why do we all remember Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, Rajguru, all these leaders? Because they displayed courage. When Bhagat Singh died, when he was awarded capital punishment, he was very young, just 23-year-old. And a 23-year-old was sacrificing his life for the sake of the country. And it inspired many people, though they did not achieve much progress in the national movement during this militant nationalist phase, but they spread the spirit of nationalism and encouraged many more youth to join the movement. And their sacrifice moved many people, and patriotic feelings were also developed among the Indians by the activities of these people. What is the result of the militant nationalist phase? British rulers expedited the process of reforms. What do you mean by expedited? Means they started introducing the reforms very quickly. I mean, they quickened the process of reforms because there was growing unrest among the people, and many people were moved by the sacrifices of these militant leaders. The most important phase of Indian national movement is Gandhian phase. It lasted from the year 1920 to 1947. Before I get into the methods of Gandhiji, I would like to discuss about his life in South Africa. Gandhiji was practicing law in South Africa before he came to India in the year 1915. Remember, yesterday we discussed about racial discrimination. Racial discrimination was an official policy followed by the British in South Africa, and Gandhiji was also a victim of that. If you see, there is a famous movie made by Shyam Benegal, The Making of Mahatma. How he went there, Gandhiji went there as Mohandas Karamchand Gandhiji, and he returned to India in the year 1915 as Mahatma. So what happened there? What happened in South Africa? That changed him from Gandhiji to Mahatma Gandhiji. Because there in South Africa, he faced racial discrimination. He was thrown out of the train, the first class compartment, though he was holding a ticket for that. And he was ill-treated by the whites there. So he understood that this policy of racial discrimination should be fought against. So he started experimenting. I mean, his fight against this racial discrimination started with Satyagraha. I mean, he developed the technique of Satyagraha when he was in South Africa, not in India. So against racial, during his fight against the racialism, he developed the technique of Satyagraha. What do you mean by Satyagraha? Satya means truth. Agraha means holding on to. Satyagraha means holding on to truth. No matter what happens in your course of struggle or course of your fight against some evil process, you should never take recourse to violence. That is what Satyagraha says. So in the year 1915, he returned to India. After coming back to India, he came to India in the year 1915 on January 9th. What is the significance of January 9th? Yes, we observe or celebrate it as Pravasi Bharati Divas. I mean, to mark the contribution of overseas Indians, because he was living in South Africa. He returned to India, and eventually he brought independence to our country. That was his great contribution. So his return to India is celebrated as Pravasi Bharati Divas. He combined protest methods of moderates and extremists. Let me tell you, after coming back to India, he did not directly join the freedom struggle. First, he toured the entire country. I mean, he moved a lot in the country to understand the situation. What is the condition of the people? What is the nature of the British rule here? Because he was living in South Africa, he was not fully aware of the happenings in our country. So first, he took a tour of the country, studied the conditions. He understood that farmers were facing a lot of problems. Then he experimented the technique that he developed in South Africa, that is with Satyagraha. He experimented. He conducted many peasant struggles in Gujarat, Kheda in Gujarat and Champaran in Bihar. At these two places, he organized the farmers and he fought for their causes. So he was recognized by these struggles, and all the people, all the members of the Indian National Congress accepted him as their leader. So that is the way he established himself as a ruler. Suddenly, he was not imposed as a representative of the Congress or as a leader of the Congress. He made a place for himself in Indian National Congress. That is what is notable here. So today's world, we see always, nepotism and the kind of legacy in political parties. But look at the way how Gandhi established himself. First, he proved that he was capable of leading an organization like INC. It's very interesting here. He combined protest methods of moderates and extremists. I mean, before him, before he came to India also, freedom struggle was going on. First, the moderates led the movement, then extremists, then militant extremists, militant nationalists led the movement. But now, after he took up the leadership, he combined all these protest methods, adopted techniques of Satyagraha, because he already experimented with that in South Africa, opposed the British draconian law and the Rowlatt Act of 1919. We discussed about Rowlatt Act in yesterday's class. It allowed the British to arrest any person without warrant, and they can detain any person without producing him in the court for a long time. So it was very dangerous. In the name of this act, many innocent people were arrested. Yes, before I go back to this point, I would like to elaborate this. So when the Rowlatt Act was passed, there were many protests in the country, all over India in general, and in Punjab in particular. So Lala Lajpat Rai was leading the movement. So during the protest against this Rowlatt Act, two important leaders were arrested, Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichlu. So people were protesting against the arrest of these two important leaders. And there is a place called Jallianwala Bagh. All the people joined there and they were peacefully protesting. It was a festival day, that is Vaishakhi. And to suppress the people and to terrorize the people, General Dyer with his troops opened fire on unarmed, very innocent civilians gathered over there and killed many people. It was such a gruesome attack on unarmed people, resulted in the death of many innocent civilians. So after this Jallianwala Bagh massacre, as a protest against this massacre, Gandhiji started non-cooperation movement. Let us elaborate a bit about the non-cooperation movement. What do you mean by non-cooperation? Non-cooperation means not cooperating with the government. And then again, he started civil disobedience movement in the year 1930. And finally, Quit India movement in the year 1942. So let us see in detail the non-cooperation movement. Children, what do you see here? Gandhiji with a charka. So what are the important happenings around this period during the non-cooperation movement? He backed Indian Muslims and their Khilafat movement. What is this Khilafat movement? Khilafat movement was brought about by the Indian Muslims to support the Turkish Sultan, who was considered as the leader of the Sunni Muslims. He was removed from he was not recognized by the British as the leader of the Sunni Muslims all over the world, and Indian Muslims were protesting against this. So Gandhiji also supported this Khilafat movement. So what are during this non-cooperation movement, many programs were undertaken, and they can be divided into positive and negative programs. What are the positive programs? Use of Swadeshi goods. This is very significant because people started using all the machine-made goods that were coming from England. As a result of that, our rural artisans were not having livelihood, and cottage industries were closed, and many people, all these people, artisans and others, went back to agriculture. They started depending on agricultural works, which were already, the agricultural field was overburdened. It had so many people already working on it, and because of these conditions, because they did not have any work to do, they had to depend on agriculture. So use of Swadeshi goods was very much encouraged by Gandhiji and other leaders during this phase of national movement. Raising 1 crore rupees to support as a fund, 1 crore rupees as a fund to support the non-cooperation movement. Distributing 20 lakh charkas to the unemployed. Charka is a symbol of self-sufficiency, and it advocates by spinning charka. Gandhiji wanted to give a message that let us be self-sufficient, let us revive our cottage industries, let us take care of our artisans, don't depend on the foreign goods, which is destroying our economy, our rural setup. Mainly the rural areas are affected by the British economic policies, and Gandhiji always believed that India lives in its villages. He was very fond of village self-sufficiency and decentralization. So the unemployed should be given charkas so that they will earn money. Adopting national educational plans. Here, Gandhiji is always known to us as a political leader. Only about his political philosophy we are aware, but he was a good academician too, and he gave many ideas. According to him, education should be at 3 levels. Education for the hand, education for the head, and education for the heart. So our current education is only targets our head. Only knowledge, no moral values, no vocational skills. So he wanted these 3 heads to be incorporated into the educational scenario. The students should be given knowledge, and they should be equipped with some occasional skills so that after completing their education, they can go out and earn their livelihood. And also they should be equipped with moral values that makes a person a complete person. Education should make us enlightened. Education should make us humble, and we should be able to stand on our own legs after completing our studies, which is not happening today because we are neglecting the vocational aspect of education. These three aspects were beautifully incorporated into his educational plans. Setting up Congress legislature bodies was another important aspect during this phase. So what are the negative programs? Boycotting foreign goods, as I told you. All the leaders spread awareness among the people that how the British was taking away our precious raw materials and giving work, generating wealth in their country. Their factories are flourishing. They are manufacturing goods, dumping here, and destroying our indigenous industries. And many artisans are now without any work. So we have the moral responsibility of boycotting foreign goods so that people will start buying our own indigenous goods, renouncing the British titles and honorary offices. So British had the habit of awarding titles to important leaders of our country. For example, during this non-cooperation movement, Gandhiji gave up his title of Kaisar-e-Hind and Rabindranath gave up his knighthood. Boycotting British courts. There were many Indian lawyers and judges working in the courts, and they all boycotted the British courts. Boycotting elections. Though very limited representation was given to the Indians, the British was holding elections for local bodies, and our leaders wanted to boycott the elections also because they were not happy with the British rule. Resigning from local bodies. Those who are already elected to the local bodies during the previous elections, they should resign to the local bodies and come out as a protest. Opposed Simon Commission. If you remember, in the year 1919, Montague-Chelmsford reforms were introduced. So the British wanted to study how far these reforms are working and what are the further measures to be taken by the British government in our country. So they appointed Simon Commission because this commission takes the name after John Simon, who was the chairman of the commission. And all the Indians, including the Congress leaders, opposed the Simon Commission. What is the reason for opposing the Simon Commission? Because there were 7 members in this commission and there is no room for a single Indian in this commission. That is the reason why they did not accept this. And there were widespread protests in our country. Wherever this commission went, they staged dharnas with black flags. So during this time, Simon Go Back became the slogan. So everywhere, wherever this commission went, people greeted them with Simon Go Back slogans. Yes. This is another important movement organized by Gandhiji, that is a civil disobedience movement. What do you mean by disobedience? Not following the laws of the government. It happened during the period 1930 to 1934. So violation of salt laws. What is the importance of salt, children, in our kitchen? Yes, it is very important. You may prepare a very tasty curry and very elaborate cooking you may do. But if you don't add salt to that, it won't taste good, right? So salt is very important. And many families in India were dependent on salt making. So they were freely making salt on the shores of the sea. But British wanted to impose a tax on making of salt. So Gandhiji believed that this is unethical and he protested against this and started civil disobedience movement. This is also known as salt satyagraha because it began with the violation of salt laws. So he started his famous march, which is known as Dandi March, protesting against the salt laws. It started from Sabarmati Ashram in Gujarat to Dandi village. So from 12th March 1930 to 6th April 1930, this continued. So there was salt satyagraha movement. Everywhere people started making salt, violating the salt law, because they believe, Gandhiji always believed that if you feel that something is wrong, then you have to oppose it. You understand that something is wrong and you remain silent, then you are also a sinner. You are also a part of that wrongdoing. Again, boycott of foreign goods. Government institutions should also be boycotted. That was the call given by the leaders, especially Gandhiji. Wearing of khadi clothes. Again, the concept of Swadeshi here. Let us avoid the cloth made in the British factories. Very cheaper, affordable, but it is not good for our country because it is destroying the lives of millions of rural artisans and weavers. So what are the goals of civil disobedience movement? To mobilize the masses, because a law which is against the will of the people, a law which is not based on ethics, should always be opposed by the masses. Positive national consciousness. Can national consciousness be negative, children? Yes, it can be negative. You studied in your 10th class. That is aggressive nationalism. What do you mean by national consciousness or nationalism? Nationalism means loving your own country and fighting for its independence. Then what do you mean by this is positive national sentiment in its positive aspect? Then what is the meaning of negative national consciousness? Means thinking that your country is great and you start hating other countries. This is not what Gandhiji advocated. It is always positive national consciousness. This is the picture of Gandhiji leading the Dandi March. Roundtable conferences. As the civil disobedience movement was intensifying, the British wanted to hold talks with the Congress. First round, it conducted some 3 meetings. The first roundtable conference took place from November 1930 to January 1931. Congress boycotted this first roundtable conference, did not want to be a part of the conference. And the British understood that Congress is the representative of majority of the people. So Congress leaders should be a part of the second roundtable conference, and they invited Gandhiji to take part in it. That is September 1931, December to 1931. Gandhiji Irwin Pact in 1931. When Gandhiji met Lord Irwin, both of them entered into an agreement which is known as Gandhiji Irwin Pact in 1931. So what is the significance of Gandhiji Irwin Pact? Gandhiji demanded that all the political prisoners should be released from the jail and their properties which were seized by the British should be given back to them. And Lord Irwin agreed to this, and Gandhiji agreed to take part in the second roundtable conference. Communal Award of Ramsay MacDonald. So around this time, Ramsay MacDonald wanted to introduce communal award. What do you mean by communal award? They wanted to introduce electoral representation to deprived classes, minorities, that is Christians, Muslims, and other religious minorities in the country. This was again a plan of the British to divide the people, divide and rule policy. Gandhiji understood that the British is playing politics and he refused this communal award and observed fast and to death. So decision to provide electoral representation to depressed classes, Muslims and other minorities. So after this came up for a discussion, Gandhiji showed his unwillingness, and then Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was considered as a representative of the deprived classes. So Gandhiji and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar held discussions and they signed the Pune Pact. According to this Pune Pact, there will be no separate electoral representation, but there will be common representation with reservation of seats. That is the essence of Pune Pact. So the third roundtable conference took from November 1932 to December 1932. So around this time, the Government of India Act was introduced. Government of India Act 1935 was introduced. The main important feature of this act is federal structure was introduced in the country. So there were many other offers like August offer in 1940 and Cripps proposals. Cripps proposals is very important because if you ask what is the essence of these Cripps proposals, Sir Stafford Cripps wanted to offer dominion status to India. What do you mean by dominion status? Dominion status means India will be given freedom to manage its internal affairs, but it remains a part of the British. It will remain as a colony of the British, but considerable freedom will be given to manage its own affairs. The final movement was launched by Gandhiji, that is Quit India Movement, 1942 to 1944. What do you mean by Quit India Movement? Who should quit India? The colonial masters should quit India and give us complete independence. So during this movement, do or die slogan became very popular. That means either you do work for the freedom of the country or you give up your life. So as a result of Quit India movement launched by the Congress under the leadership of Gandhiji, the British banned Indian National Congress. Nationwide demonstration took place against the decisions of the rulers, and people demanded the British to quit India. But here, the movement was led by Gandhiji, who believed in non-violent practices. So the agitation was peaceful and non-violent. So finally, India was granted independence in the year 1947. So this is all about the phases of Indian national movement. Let's recapitulate the main points, students. Indian national movement was divided into 3 phases. They are moderate, extremist, and Gandhian phases. This is based on the methods and strategies followed by the leaders. Some prominent leaders during the moderate phase were Dadabhai Nauroji, Gopalakrishna Gokhale, etc. The important movements during the extremist phase were Swadeshi and Home Rule movement. Swadeshi means let us stick to our own goods, indigenous goods. Leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, and Bipin Chandra Pal were the important extremist leaders. The landmarks during the Gandhian phase were the non-cooperation movement, the protest against the Simon Commission, civil disobedience movement, and Quit India movement. So what is your task after attending this session? You have to describe the various phases of the Indian national movement. So this is an important question that appears in many exams, your board exams. Students, we ensure dissemination of knowledge and expect you to keep learning. No matter whatever may be the situation, we make sure that we will reach out to you. Thank you so much for attending the session.
Thank you, Bharati madam. It was indeed a wonderful session.
Thank you, Bharti madam, for the session. So
Thank you.
if you are ready with other sessions, we'll continue civic session. As of now, you're the first speaker for this. So thank you. Hope all the viewers have got the required input for the subject. Thank you all, and thank you the web team.
Thank you very much, sir. May I take leave now?